Under the twin suns of Varnak Prime, the landing pads gleamed like polished bone. Captain Elias Ward stepped down the ramp of the Terran shuttle, his boots echoing against the metal, his face expressionless behind a mask of duty. Around him, the air shimmered with heat and the scent of ozone, carrying the low hum of a world that had long forgotten fear. 2 Varnak sentinels, scaled, broad, and ceremonially armed, watched him approach. Their golden eyes were curious, almost pitying, as though looking upon a relic. Ward met neither gaze. His uniform was crisp, the black and grey of the Terran diplomatic corps, but his posture betrayed a soldier's edge. Everything about him, his measured pace, his silent scrutiny, spoke of a man who had walked through wars and come out quieter, not softer. At the end of the walkway waited General Threx of the Dominion, his armor sculpted to emphasize power. The alien's voice resonated through a translator bead that hung like a shard of glass from his throat. "Captain Ward of Earth," he said, a tone of condescension veiled in politeness. "Welcome to Varnak Prime. It is not often that your kind walks these halls." Ward inclined his head slightly. "Our kind prefers peace now. That doesn't mean we don't walk." The general's lips curved, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Peace," he repeated. A fine word from a world that burned half its surface to achieve it. Ward didn't respond. His eyes flicked past Threx to the spires of the capital rising like daggers into the hazy sky. He had seen that look before, in countless species who mistook restraint for weakness. A smaller figure approached, robed in pale silks and covered in shifting tattoos that shimmered with bioluminescent patterns. "Kalu," the alien announced with a flourish, bowing low. "Cultural minister and commentator for today's event. I will ensure your comfort, Captain." "Event?" Ward asked, though he already knew the answer. Kalayu's expression was all charm. "A demonstration. A celebration of strength. You, of all beings, should appreciate that." They led him through the corridors of the Dominion's grand arena, a vast construct of glass and organic steel that pulsed faintly with the energy of the crowd beyond. The deeper they went, the more Ward's jaw tightened. The air vibrated with excitement, the alien equivalent of a festival. He had read the invitation 100 times during the trip from Mars orbit. An exhibition in honor of peace between the Dominion and the surviving Terran factions. He had known it was bait, a show of dominance wrapped in ceremony. But Earth needed eyes out here, and he was the only one they could send. The corridor opened into a viewing chamber suspended above the central pit. Tens of thousands of aliens filled the stands, a sea of scales, feathers, and chitin, their voices blending into a living roar. Ward stood behind the glass, his reflection a dark silhouette against the brilliant arena below. In the center, under a canopy of harsh white light, lay the sand, reddish, coarse, still stained from previous spectacles. Massive gates lined the perimeter, sealed for now, but already vibrating from the movement of something heavy on the other side. General Threx spread his claws toward the scene. "Behold, Captain. The Dominion's finest showcase of courage and biological mastery." Ward didn't look away from the pit. "And what's the point of this?" "Entertainment," Threx replied easily. "But also education. Today we remind our people why we are the galactic standard for power. And," he added with a smirk, "why the Deathworlders you call humans are best remembered, not feared." Ward's eyes narrowed. "Deathworlder?" "Indeed. We've found one of yours, female, feral, unaligned. A remnant of your warborn kind. It seems fitting to let her prove what your species truly is, under fair conditions, of course." The words landed like cold metal. Ward turned toward him fully now, his voice a low hum. "You're putting a human in that pit?" Kalayu interjected, his tone light, almost gleeful. "A volunteer, technically. She was found working as a mercenary on the outer colonies. When offered the chance to demonstrate her prowess before the Dominion, she accepted. Humans are proud, are they not?" Pride wasn't the word. Ward felt something tighten in his chest, something he hadn't allowed himself to feel in years, anger. Controlled, banked, but there. He watched as the crowd's energy rose, a wave cresting before a storm. "Does she have a name?" he asked quietly. Threx's crest rippled, a gesture of mild amusement. "It's irrelevant. Your kind prefers titles, not legacies. She is the Deathworlder. Ward didn't move. His fingers brushed the edge of his wristplate, feeling the etched symbol of the Terran phoenix beneath the fabric, a reminder of what it meant to endure extinction and come back breathing. He had seen colonies destroyed, oceans boiled, and still, humanity lived. That was their curse and their weapon. The arena lights dimmed. A deep vibration rippled through the floor as the gates began to open, chains grinding against ancient gears. The crowd howled, an alien choir exalting blood. Ward's pulse steadied. He didn't know her, but she was his kind. That was enough. A figure stepped into the light. Small compared to the hulking silhouettes of her captors, bare-armed, scarred, and barefoot. She moved like an animal that had forgotten what cages were. The arena air shimmered around her as the heat from the suns filtered down. Her eyes scanned the crowd, not with fear, but with calculation. "Impressive, isn't she?" Kayla Yu murmured. "Fragile, yet defiant. Your species has spirit. It's almost a shame how little use you've found for it since the wars ended." Ward said nothing. His gaze never left her. He could see the faint tremor of exhaustion in her shoulders, the half-healed burn on her arm, the way her stance shifted slightly, weighting one leg over the other, small tells that spoke volumes to a soldier's eye. Across from her, the second gate began to rise. Steam and the metallic scent of blood poured out. The crowd leaned forward in collective hunger. Threx's voice carried over the speaker system. "Let the Dominion witness strength. Let history remember who rules the stars." Ward's hand tightened on the railing until his knuckles whitened. He had seen this play before. Every empire thought it could tame chaos by putting it in a cage. Every empire forgot that chaos bites. The creature emerged, towering, scaled, a genetic abomination designed to kill. Its roar shook the glass walls. The crowd screamed in joy. Ward watched as the woman lifted her chin and rolled her shoulders, unarmed, unarmored, utterly still. The sound of her exhale cut through the din like the calm before an avalanche. Threx turned toward Ward, triumphant. "Tell me, Captain, what do you think your Deathworlder will do?" Ward didn't look away from the arena. His voice was quiet, measured. "You'll see." The gates clanged shut behind the beast. Dust rose. For a heartbeat, the entire arena held its breath. And in that silence, Elias Ward smiled, small, grim, knowing. He had seen what happened when the galaxy forgot what Earth was. They were about to remember. The creature lunged, a blur of muscle and chitin, claws raking the air with the sound of tearing metal. The woman moved before thought could form, one step aside, low, precise. The strike missed her throat by inches, claws carving furrows into the red dust. She did not scream. She did not retreat. She turned with the motion, driving her elbow into the beast's flank. The impact sounded like a hammer hitting wet stone. From his place behind the glass, Captain Elias Ward watched without breathing. The crowd erupted, their cheers a rising storm of cruelty and excitement. General Threx's crest flared in delight beside him, while Kalayu's voice, amplified by the arena speakers, carried to every corner of the Colosseum. "Observe, Dominion citizens. The famed Deathworlder, tested against the apex of Varnak Prime's genetic mastery. A spectacle of biology, will, and evolution." Ward's gaze stayed on her. He saw her shoulders rise and fall, slow and deliberate. Each inhale was measured, each exhale a weapon. She was gauging the creature, reading it as a soldier reads terrain. The beast circled, massive tail dragging a groove in the dust, its eyes glowing yellow with synthetic rage. It charged again, this time feinting left before spinning with its tail. The blow caught her ribs and hurled her across the pit. She rolled once, twice, landing on her knees. Blood dripped from her lip. The crowd howled approval. Threx leaned forward, voice thick with satisfaction. "Even Deathworlders bleed." Ward didn't answer. His eyes caught the small things, the way her fingers flexed against the ground, the way her gaze tracked every movement of her opponent. She wasn't broken. She was adapting. The creature roared and came again. She moved differently now, lowering her center of gravity, making herself a smaller target. Dust burst around her feet as she dodged. Then, for the first time, she attacked. She slid beneath the creature's reach, driving a shard of broken metal, snatched from the arena floor, into the joint of its leg. The beast howled, stumbling. Ward's heart beat once, hard. That was no accident. She had mapped the terrain, found a weakness, improvised a weapon from debris no one else would have noticed. She was thinking like a Deathworlder. Kalayu's tone shifted, uncertain now. A remarkable maneuver, primal, yet effective. Threx's expression soured. Instinct. Nothing more. Ward spoke softly. Instinct's just another word for experience written in the bones. The beast thrashed, dragging her along the ground. She wrenched the shard free and dove aside just before its jaws slammed shut where her head had been. Blood streaked her arm, but her grip tightened on the makeshift blade. She didn't hesitate. She climbed the creature's back like a soldier scaling rubble under fire, stabbing down with brutal precision. Each strike was deliberate. Not rage. Not frenzy. Purpose. Ward's reflection stared back at him from the glass, his own face pale beneath the harsh light. He remembered the training fields outside the ruins of old Lisbon, the drills that never ended, the mantra every recruit learned before they could stand, adapt, overcome, endure. She was the living echo of that creed. The crowd's tone began to shift. The earlier laughter faltered into murmurs, disbelief blooming where mockery had been. The Dominion elite had come to witness dominance. Instead, they were watching struggle turn into strategy, survival become something terrifyingly elegant. The creature reared, blood spraying from its leg wounds. The Deathworlder leapt clear, rolled, and landed in a crouch, her chest heaving. Her gaze locked on its throat. "Do you see it?" Ward asked quietly. Threx didn't look away. "She is dying slowly. That's all." Ward's lips twitched, the ghost of a smile. "No. She's learning fast." The beast lunged once more, jaws wide, and she sprinted straight toward it. The crowd gasped as she dove under its reach, slid between its claws, and drove the shard deep into the soft flesh beneath its jaw. The sound that followed was not a roar, it was a gurgling, strangled gasp. She twisted the metal until it cracked. Blood sprayed across her face. She staggered backward, panting, as the monster convulsed and fell. The arena went silent. No music, no roar of triumph. Just the echo of a body hitting the sand. Kalayu's voice broke the stillness, shaky now. "A remarkable outcome. The Deathworlder prevails." The silence deepened. Tens of thousands of eyes stared down at the human woman standing alone amid the ruin of what they had believed invincible. She didn't raise her arms. She didn't celebrate. She simply looked up, at them. Through the glass, her gaze met Ward's. For a heartbeat, he felt the weight of everything she represented. The quiet defiance. The endurance that had carried their kind through extinction, through fire and void. He gave her a small nod. She blinked once, almost imperceptibly, and turned away. General Threx shifted uncomfortably beside him. "She's a freak. That's all she is. The Dominion remains supreme. This anomaly proves nothing." Ward's eyes never left the arena floor. "That's what your ancestors said, too." Threx's head snapped toward him. "What are you implying, human?" Ward didn't answer. Below, the woman had dropped to one knee, breathing hard. Her skin was streaked with blood, but her expression was calm. Two medical drones approached cautiously, their metallic limbs trembling. Even the machines hesitated to touch her. Kalayu's tone trembled between awe and fear. "Fascinating. She exhibits no signs of submission. It is as if she has not yet recognized victory." "She has," Ward murmured. "But she doesn't care about your games." The crowd began to stir again, voices rising in confusion and unease. Some shouted for her to bow. Others demanded she kill again. She ignored them all. Slowly, she bent, tore a fang from the creature's jaw, and stood. The motion was deliberate, ritualistic. She lifted the fang high enough for all to see. Then she dropped it to the sand and walked away. The gesture rippled through the stands like a shockwave. Threx's crest flattened, his composure fracturing. "She dares reject the Dominion's honor?" Ward's tone was mild, but his eyes were cold steel. "She's reminding you what honor costs." Kaelu turned toward him, his voice a whisper now. "I begin to understand why they called your kind Deathworlders. It was not only the world that was lethal, was it?" Ward said nothing. His gaze followed her as the gates opened for her exit, light washing over her silhouette. Each step she took was unhurried, steady, leaving prints in the red sand that glowed faintly under the arena's light. The crowd didn't cheer when she disappeared through the gate. They sat in stunned silence, the taste of unease thick in the air. For the first time, the Dominion audience had witnessed not dominance, but defiance. Not survival for entertainment's sake, but a quiet demonstration of power that needed no validation. Threx exhaled sharply, forcing composure back into his voice. "A spectacle. Nothing more. She will die in captivity before the day is done." Ward turned from the window, his reflection fading into the glass. "You think so," he said softly. "But I've learned one thing about our kind. We never stay caged for long." Threx glared after him, but Ward didn't look back. The air between them was heavy with something neither wanted to name, an old memory stirring, something once buried in fear. As Ward walked out of the observation deck, the crowd behind him began to murmur again, this time with tones of apprehension rather than excitement. A legend had just stood before them, bleeding and unbroken. And somewhere deep within the Dominion's core, the collective mind of 1,000 species remembered that Earth was not a myth, nor a relic, but a warning. The arena lay silent long after the crowd had dispersed. The red sand, still damp with alien blood, glimmered under the sterilizing floodlights. Captain Elias Ward stood alone at the window, watching drones cleanse the battleground where one woman had dismantled a myth. Her victory had rippled across the Dominion like a seismic pulse. Already, reports flowed through the comm channels, some praising her ferocity, others condemning it as barbarism. The Dominion had expected a spectacle. What they received was a revelation. Ward's reflection in the glass looked hollow, ghosted by fatigue. He had seen this before, civilizations that mocked humanity's endurance until they met it up close. The Deathworlder girl, still nameless to him, had turned their arrogance into fear with nothing but instinct and defiance. And that fear was spreading. The door behind him slid open with a soft hiss. General Threx entered, his armor dulled by the arena's dust. The confident gleam from earlier was gone. His voice, when it came, carried an edge of forced composure. "Your representative has been secured. She's alive, though injured. She refused medical treatment." Ward didn't turn around. "Of course she did." Threx's crest twitched. "You find pride in this savagery?" "I find truth in it," Ward said quietly. "You called her Deathworlder. You wanted to see what that meant." Threx's tone sharpened. "She embarrassed the Dominion before billions. There are calls for her execution." Ward finally faced him. "If you kill her, you'll make her a martyr. And martyrs don't die quietly." The general hesitated, claws flexing. "You presume too much, human. She's one of yours, not one of ours." Ward stepped closer, his voice low but cutting. "You don't understand. When you put her in that arena, when you made her bleed in front of your people, she stopped being one of mine. She became something older, something your ancestors feared enough to quarantine an entire planet." Threx's eyes narrowed. "Threats?" "History," Ward replied. The silence between them thickened. Then Threx turned sharply toward the door. "You will accompany me to the council chamber. The Dominion leadership demands explanation for today's anomaly." Ward followed without a word. The corridors outside pulsed with tension, soldiers whispering, reporters shouting, holograms replaying the Deathworlders' fight from 100 angles. Every broadcast anchor spoke with a different tone: awe, fear, denial. The footage had already reached outlying colonies. Across 1,000 worlds, the Dominion subjects were remembering that humanity had once defied extinction itself. In the council hall, light poured down through crystal panes that refracted into harsh spectrums across the polished floor. A half-dozen Dominion officials waited around a circular dais. Their postures were rigid, ceremonial. Kaelu stood among them, no longer smiling. His eyes, those luminescent, shifting orbs, met Ward's briefly, and for the first time, there was something like respect in them. "Captain Ward," one of the elder counselors began, his voice dry and brittle, "your species has always been unpredictable. Today's incident borders on provocation. Explain why this Deathworlder behaved as she did." Ward clasped his hands behind his back. "She behaved like a human." Murmurs rippled through the room. Another counselor hissed softly. "A human does not defy the Dominion's authority in full view of the galaxy." "She didn't defy your authority," Ward said. "She defied extinction. That's what we do." Kalayu's voice broke the tension. Perhaps the captain should elaborate. The crowd saw her victory as instinctual. Yet she fought with strategy, precision. Was that training? Ward's expression didn't change. "No. She was a teacher once." That drew startled looks from every corner of the room. "She taught children how to survive on Terra's fractured soil," Ward continued. "When the rains turned acid, when the sun burned through clouded skies, she kept them alive. She wasn't bred for war. She simply learned that the universe doesn't forgive weakness. You called her Deathworlder. But the truth is, Earth made her exactly what you saw, something that doesn't break, even when it should." Kalu leaned forward, his voice barely above a whisper. "And you sent such a being here willingly?" "She wasn't sent," Ward said. "You found her. You paraded her. And now you're afraid of what that means." Threx slammed a clawed hand on the table. "Afraid? The Dominion fears no species. We mastered the stars while your kind still fought over the ashes of your planet." Ward didn't flinch. "And yet one woman from those ashes just reminded your empire that survival isn't mastery. It's will." The elder counselor rose slowly. "Enough," he declared. "The Dominion does not cower before ghosts. The Deathworlder will be dealt with swiftly and discreetly. The transmission archives will be altered. This matter will vanish from history." Ward felt the weight of inevitability settle on him. He had expected this. They would bury it, as they had buried every sign of weakness before. But this time, it would not stay buried. The footage was already loose in the data streams. The galaxy was watching. He stepped forward until the council lights reflected in his eyes like twin flames. "Erase the footage if you want. It won't matter. The moment she stood up after bleeding in your pit, you lost control of the story. Every child watching on a frontier world saw what you saw, and they won't forget." Threx bristled, his voice a growl. "You speak as though this victory means something." Ward met his glare with quiet certainty. "It means everything." The hall went still. The air carried the faint hum of the Dominion's energy core far below, steady and endless. For the first time since his arrival, Ward sensed a shift, not in politics, but in the undercurrent of fear that threaded through the room. Kalu broke the silence again, his voice softer now, almost reverent. "What drives your kind to fight so relentlessly, Captain? Even now, with nothing left to conquer?" Ward turned toward him, his expression unreadable. "We don't fight to conquer. We fight because the universe never stopped trying to kill us." The answer hung in the air, cold and final. No one spoke after that. When Ward left the chamber, the corridors buzzed with activity. Protesters had gathered outside the arena, some furious, others chanting the woman's name though none knew it. Screens replayed the final moment again and again, her lifting the fang, the silent defiance in her stance. Across the Dominion's networks, the phrase Deathworlder began to trend, not as an insult, but as a warning. Ward stepped into the shuttle bay, where the night's artificial light dimmed against the vast sprawl of the city below. A shadow moved in the corner of the deck. Kalayu's approached, hesitant. "She's being held beneath the arena," the alien said quietly. "They won't kill her yet. The council fears the reaction." Ward's voice dropped to a whisper. "Good." Kalayu's bioluminescent markings flickered faintly. "Do you intend to intervene?" Ward gave a faint, humorless smile. "I intend to remind them that fear isn't forgotten. It just sleeps." Kalu tilted his head, studying the human with something close to wonder. "They say the death world made you cruel." "No," Ward said. "It made us honest." The alien's glow dimmed as he stepped back into the shadows, leaving Ward alone with the hum of the city. Somewhere below, the Deathworlder girl sat in a cell, unbroken. Somewhere beyond the horizon, entire species were whispering her name. Ward looked toward the stars, his jaw set. The Dominion thought this was an isolated spectacle, a minor disturbance. They were wrong. It was the beginning of remembrance. The sky above Varnak Prime boiled with electric storms. The city's towers gleamed like obsidian spears, reflecting the flashes of lightning that split the upper atmosphere. Captain Elias Ward stood in the rain-soaked plaza before the Dominion Council spire, his coat plastered to his frame, his eyes fixed on the flickering broadcast screens that filled every corner of the capital. The Dominion had lost control of its own message. Every public display, every transmission channel now replayed the same footage, the Deathworlder girl standing over the fallen beast, her blood-smeared face raised in quiet defiance. The Dominion had tried to censor it. They failed. Someone inside had released the uncut recording. The entire galaxy was watching. Ward's earpiece crackled with interference. "Captain," came Kelly's tense voice, barely audible beneath the static, "they are convening the emergency council. Threx is demanding your presence. He believes this is a Terran plot." Ward's reply was calm. "Then he'll get his answer." Inside the spire, the great hall buzzed with energy, lights dimmed to the color of a storm cloud. Dozens of Dominion officials filled the chamber, their voices sharp with panic. General Threx stood at the center, armor scorched, temper barely contained. When Ward entered, every head turned toward him, the lone human in a room of predators. Threx's voice sliced through the noise. "Captain Ward, explain this chaos. The lower colonies riot, the frontier worlds refuse compliance, and your Deathworlder's image spreads across the network faster than our firewalls can contain it." Ward walked slowly to the center of the dais. "You call it chaos. I call it memory." Threx's claws dug into the metal table. "Memory of what?" "Of why you feared us," Ward said. His voice didn't rise, but the hall seemed to still. "You built your empire on the myth that humanity was broken, scattered. But you just reminded the galaxy what happens when you corner one of us." She didn't just fight for herself, she showed them that fear of Earth was never superstition. It was history. Kalu stepped forward from the side, his luminous skin flickering with unease. "General, the footage cannot be erased. It's already off-world. Entire networks are echoing it across the rim." "Then we burn the rim." Threx roared, slamming his fist down. "We crush this infection before it spreads." Ward's eyes flashed. "You can't crush an idea." Threx turned on him, voice venomous. "You would see war reignited, human? You would see blood flow again just to feed your species' pride?" Ward's composure didn't break. "No. But you forget who started the last one. You came to our skies and called us monsters. You burned cities because we frightened you. We only fought back." The council chamber trembled as another lightning strike split the sky outside. Holograms flickered, static bled through the walls like ghostly whispers. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Kaliu stepped closer, his expression unreadable. "General Threx," he said softly, "there is something you should see." The alien tapped his wrist console. The lights dimmed, and a holographic projection flickered to life in the center of the room. It was a live transmission, an image of the detention level beneath the arena. The Deathworlder girl sat inside a containment cell, head bowed, her hands bound with energy restraints. Guards surrounded her, uneasy even at a distance. "She hasn't spoken since capture," Kaliu said. "But the people have. Entire sectors are calling her the Ember of Earth. They say she's the spark of something forgotten." Threx growled. "A name doesn't make a movement." "Neither does fear," Ward replied. "Until it's shared." The general whirled toward him. "You did this. You and that creature of yours. You came here to light the embers of war again." Ward met his gaze steadily. "I came here to remind you what peace built on fear really costs." The tension snapped. Threx lunged, claws outstretched, and Ward sidestepped, the movement instinctive, honed by decades of survival. The alien's blow cracked the table instead, splintering steel. Ward didn't flinch. You think this ends with me? You think killing her will make the galaxy forget? Threx's voice broke into a snarl. Then let's test that theory. He slammed his hand on the comm panel. Execute the Deathworlder. Now. Kayla, you froze. General. Now. The hologram feed jolted as alarms blared through the detention level. Ward moved before thought, seizing Threx's arm and twisting it behind his back. The room erupted into chaos. Kaylu shouted something, but Ward was already gone, sprinting toward the lifts. Guards moved to intercept, but none dared fire. The corridors shook from the storm above, the air thick with the charge of something greater than politics. Ward reached the detention floor as the lights flickered red. The smell of ozone and burning metal filled the air. 2 Dominion soldiers lay unconscious near the cell door, their weapons melted to slag. Inside, the Deathworlder girl stood free, restraints shattered, her body trembling with exhaustion but her eyes burning with feral focus. Ward, she rasped, voice cracked from silence. They wanted a monster. I gave them one. He stepped forward slowly, watching her expression, the wildness behind it. You gave them truth. She looked past him at the alarms, the flashing lights, the chaos above. What happens now? He hesitated. Now they remember. The wall behind her exploded as an assault team stormed in, weapons raised. She didn't wait for orders. She moved like the arena had taught her, pure instinct, a blur of motion and fury. Ward joined her, unarmed but deadly, using every ounce of training and precision left in him. The fight was brutal, silent but for the hum of plasma fire and the crack of impact. When it was over, the room was smoke and blood. Ward turned toward her, chest heaving. We can't stay here. The Dominion will hunt you to the edge of the stars. She smiled faintly, the expression tired but unbroken. Let them try. Outside, the city burned with riot light. The people had taken to the streets, chanting her title. Some shouted for freedom, others for fear. Ward led her through the corridors as Dominion forces scrambled in confusion. The empire that had believed itself eternal was fracturing in real time. They reached the shuttle bay just as Kayla appeared from the shadows, his robe torn, eyes glowing dimly. You'll never make it past orbit, he warned. Ward met his gaze. Then the story will. The alien hesitated, then stepped aside. Go. The Dominion has forgotten humility for too long. Maybe it needs your kind to remind it. Ward guided the woman into the shuttle, engines already whining with overdrive strain. As the ramp closed, he looked out at the city one last time. The towers, the fire, the flickering holograms of her standing tall against a fallen beast. The ship rose through the storm, lightning washing the hull in blue light. The Deathworlder sat beside him, silent, staring through the viewport at the chaos below. They'll come for us, she said softly. I know. Then why save me? Ward's hands tightened on the controls. Because they needed to see what they made. And because you reminded me what we are. X.